Somer Sports Broadcast.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Somer Sports Broadcast. I'm Brandon. I'm here with
Philip, Benny,
and we're going to jump right into it with our usual Somer Sports recap. So, Benny, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, so on April 26th in girls lacrosse, they took on Mayorpac, and the Tuskers wound up taking that one 16-7. A great performance by the Tuskers.
Yeah, now also on the same day, instead of girls lacrosse, it was boys lacrosse taking on John Jay Cross River at John Jay, and Somers got it done 18-4.
Yeah, on April 28th, girls varsity flag football lost to Scarsdale 14-0.
Yeah, and then on the same day, girls varsity softball took on Hen Hut, and they won 9-3.
Next day, right after, same team, varsity softball, took on White Plains, couldn't keep that momentum, and unfortunately lost 2-0.
And then on April 29th, boys varsity baseball played Brewster away, and they won 8-4.
On April 28th, the Tuskers took on Greeley in boys varsity lacrosse. This was a good game. Greeley beat the Tuskers in the playoffs just a year ago, but Somers came in with revenge, dominating that game from the beginning, winning 20-6.
All right, so next, boys JV baseball travels to Rye-Neck and wins 11-4.
So next up, we have our interview with Somers varsity baseball coach, JT. All right, so today I'm here with Somers varsity baseball coach, Coach JT. Thank you for coming in today.
No problem. Thank you for having me, man.
Of course, and let's get started with the first question. So, what inspired you to become a baseball coach?
Yeah, so I played baseball my whole life. I played at Somers High School. I graduated here in 2013. I went on to play at the University at Albany. And every step of the way, I was always the big kid, threw hard, and was projectable. And there was always some obstacle that kind of came up. So I was able to learn a lot as I kind of went through all of those different experiences, and was able to really kind of bring it back after my career ended to this community, to around this community, and kind of give back to some of the stuff that I didn't have when I was playing.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of those that may not know, could you tell the viewers watching some of the basics about baseball?
Yeah, so baseball is one of the oldest sports in America, where basically there are 9 fielders in the field versus a lineup that typically has about 9 players on the opposing team. Everyone comes up one at a time, and the pitcher delivers the baseball to the catcher, and either swing and miss or a ball inside the strike zone gets you a strike. 3 strikes, you're out. If you get 4 balls, you get a free base. And then anytime the ball hits the ground that is not caught by a fielder, the runner has the ability to advance to one of the 4 bases, and every time you get back to home, it's a run, and whoever has the most runs at the end wins.
All right, and now can you talk about how did you work up to where you are now as a coach?
So pretty unique, I guess. I started off my coaching career directly after I finished at Albany when I played. I was going through some pro workouts and was dealing with a shoulder injury, and decided to give myself about 6 months to really kind of rehab it and get back. And during that time period, my pitching coach just became the head coach at Iona College, and he'd asked me to come on as a volunteer assistant, also use their facilities to be able to rehab myself and get going. That summer came up, and I was going to a couple workouts that I had set up, and felt really good, and kind of had this, realization that my career playing-wise wasn't really what I guess was driving me. It was more the coaching end. So I then became the pitching coach at the university, or at Iona University. Iona College at the time, now it's Iona University. And then ended up within probably 4 or 5 months, became the youngest recruiting coordinator and pitching coach in Division I in the country at that time for baseball, and really loved it until I kind of really started to get experience and coming back home, recruiting some kids from Somers, and really kind of fall in love with the community again and wanting to be back here. And I got hooked up with a couple of really cool people that own a baseball facility not too far away. And I kind of got drawn in, had a tough decision, decided to go more into that realm, into the private stuff. And then this opened up, and I jumped all over it. So it was a kind of a zigzag as we went through, but I'm really happy being here, especially at my alma mater.
Yeah, definitely, and that sounds like a great story.
Thank you.
So on to the next question. So what do you do to strategize your team for each game? Like the basics.
Baseball is different than I feel like a lot of different other high school sports where we have about 5 or so 6 weeks to kind of cram in about 20 games. So it's really hard to individually prioritize individual opponents as much. What we do is we kind of create an identity for ourselves as we go through our preseason work and what we want to focus on specifically on an offensive end, a defensive end, a pitching end, base running, all of that stuff. And that kind of allows us to create this model that we are trying every game attack. And then game to game, there'll be some kids that we highlight on the other teams that we might know or know we're going to see or whatever it is. But realistically, just stay true to ourselves is the biggest thing in going out and playing day in, day out. But we kind of go over some small scouting reports and stuff like that of other teams.
Oh, very cool. And what about coaching baseball? If you had to pick one or two things, do you enjoy the most?
The process, I think, on an individual end and on a team end. The team end, there's just a whole other end to it aside from the private sector, where you're seeing these group of kids and players mature not only on the baseball field but outside the baseball field. And it's a really cool thing to see, especially when they start kind of gaining some traction and success. You see kind of just how they're able to advance through it, and then on an individual end, just seeing each kid set these individual goals for themselves, and whether they might be lofty at some points or not, they just seeing how they work towards them. And there's going to be obstacles in the way, but how getting through that, and everything is kind of like its own little puzzle and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. And how would you describe your coaching style?
I would like to say players coach, but for me, I try to communicate as much as I can. It wasn't too long ago till once I was in those shoes. I'm not too old, and I remember a lot of those practices we had with all my friends. So I try to keep my style to be as good of a communicator as I possibly could be, because if I can explain what I am looking for, what I want, and what I'm seeing, then the player is able to react very well. I've had it where I've had coaches who are very reserved and it's my way or the highway. I don't think that's particularly correct. I think there's ways to talk to each individual to get the best out of them. So that's really what I try to drive home. And then obviously on a more strategic end, I'm very analytical, but also, like I said, being a communicator, you kind of understand how both blend.
All right. And how do you keep your athletes engaged and motivated during practices and games?
I guess the old way of doing it is just raising your voice sometimes. But what I've noticed is, especially at the high school level, what's different from the college and pro ranks is that process might not be there and understanding. So keeping things fresh, new, changing them often, with having the same focus in mind helps a lot of these younger kids, because when things become the same and monotonous, it's something that they're not super into, because they're not understanding how much we're just trying to accumulate positive reps. So if we're changing things often with the same focus, they're able to kind of focus up as we're changing some of the constraints around them.
Okay. If you had to pick one or maybe two, what is the toughest opponent you've had to strategize against in your coaching career, and why?
I guess the college ranks was always going to be one of those first 4 weekends that you play, because as a Northeast school you go down south and you're always going to play the really good schools down there. We played University of Maryland, we played College of Charleston, New Mexico State, a bunch of really good teams, and there was a lot of unique aspects that we had to kind of understand as we go down there, because it's a different brand of baseball that they play. Yeah. So that was always a little bit transitionary for us. But at the high school ranks, as I was kind of transitioning out of it, it's tough to say one specific opponent, but there's a lot of really, really good programs in the area that just continuously always, pumping out really good players. Yorktown, who's a rival of ours, Mayapack, who's also, next door. Fox Lane's always really, really good. So it's one of those things where those guys are always putting on a brand of baseball that is always tough to defend. And you have to take so many other things into account when playing those guys. So just making sure the team as a whole's focus is always a challenge. So I would probably say one of those blue blood programs in the area.
Yeah, okay, cool. And when a player joins the team for the first time, what are the factors that help you decide what position or where on the field would work best for that player?
So, experience is huge. When you get into the, next levels, that's usually where they'll maybe change some guys based off of athleticism and experience. The high school level, it's a little bit more sensitive. So if you take a kid who's played shortstop his whole life and you want to go make him a right fielder, for him it's a completely different thing without really understanding. It isn't. It's just another game, a position in the game of baseball. But it's, for me, I greatly take an experience, and then how, based off of that, we could bridge another opportunity for that kid. See initially how they look out there naturally with their instincts, because that is a big thing. We've done that last year with one of our captains. John Robinson was always a middle infielder, and we put him in center field, and he did a great job because his instincts were there, and he played up the middle. So transitioning him to the center field position, a lot of the same reads off the bat stayed consistent. So that's another thing we take into account, where if guys are always a second baseman and we have an open spot in right field, moving them, keeping them on the same side of the baseball, so a lot of the same baseballs that are coming off the bat stay true. So there's a lot of things, and it also depends on the kid's character. Just how tough is he mentally? Is he able to kind of deal with the failure and not just run away? So there's a lot, factors with that, but it's case to case. So I guess what we do is we really just kind of look at what our needs are individually as a team, and then based off of that, kind of to see what our options might be.
Okay. And what does a typical practice look like for you and the team?
So realistically, what our normal practice is, we have a practice plan every day where we kind of go through some mobility work, some activation, some dynamic stuff, getting the arm ready. Each position group has a throwing program that they do based off of some different components, getting different types of reps and different types of throws in. Then we do individual work where our pitchers go off and do their protocol, which is a lot of drill work and some mound work, and depending on where they are in their intensity. Catchers go off and do their own individual work. Infielders, outfielders. We do that for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we come back in as a team. We do some sort of team defense, whether it's reviewing our bunt first and thirds, situational stuff, rundowns, all that kind of stuff. And then we go into our offensive section, which takes about an hour. We do multiple different stations, get them in their hitting group, depending on our team philosophy, where we're lacking, that, or potentially what we're going to be seeing that next game or next week. And then after that, we kind of regroup, have our end meeting, and then that's it. So the structure generally stays the same, but realistically, the different components might change here and there.
All right, so now getting into more of your life. So outside of coaching Somers, what else do you currently do for a job, for a living?
So I have a couple other things I do. So my main job, my full-time job, is I work for Westchester County Parks and Rec. I do infrastructure management. Basically what it is my responsibility at the facility that I'm at is organizing different crews, doing landscaping, building upkeep, stuff like that, just general maintenance work, and kind of running a team of guys through that stuff. And then obviously this isn't right now directly after that, and then I also work at a baseball facility as well that I'm part of called Hudson Athletics, and I'm able to train a lot of our guys and a lot of other guys from the area as well.
Okay, that's cool. And now focusing back on the team, what makes this baseball team the threat that they are, the Somers team?
They're tough, they're gritty. I've challenged them a lot, and they've responded. right now, we're still trying to put together that complete performance, but we've shown flashes that when we have a little bit of everything going on, not a lot of teams can compete with us. We can swing it well, we can pitch it well, we can pick it really well, we can run well. We're just trying to make it all kind of be cohesive. Once we do that, I really do think that this team is special. And the people on the team make it 10 times better. There's not a lot of times I'm screaming to go get this set up or that set up. It's just kind of happening. And it starts with our 4 senior captains as well. So it's just a good group, cohesive group that enjoys being together every single day, that are very, very talented. So I think as long as we kind of keep on working towards our end goal, the playoffs could be very fun.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Definitely, glee is like an important part of being on a team.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, can you describe some of the strongest characteristics of this team?
Honestly, I think their strongest characteristic is how much they like being around each other, which is a huge aspect in any team sport. I mean, the kids, sometimes I gotta kind of get on them a little bit because it's not just practice, isn't just hanging out with your friends, but they really enjoy being around each other. They really like just whether it's helping out our youth organization for some youth organization stuff or clinics or a practice or a game, they're always smiling. They're loving being together, which as a coach is really awesome to see. Some other strong characteristics within the game: our front end of our pitching staff's really talented, and our lineup when they're clicking is really good. So again, I think realistically, as long as we kind of get those two pieces to come together, we are a very good team.
All right. So next question is, how have your players impacted your coaching?
They've given me, I guess, a different meaning to this game. Every kid I've interacted with has taught me a lesson individually as well. Whatever level I've coached at, I always thought, the top was going to play professional baseball. I had that dream for a really long time. And, I took that step away and decided to turn that down to go and advance my career in coaching. And it was because of just how much enjoyment and passion I did have for teaching and for being able to help these kids in the process and get further than I did, or have more opportunity than I did. So I don't think the players understand this, but they've impacted me way more than I've ever impacted them. Just seeing those little victories here and there, allows me to go home, rest my head at night, and know that I'm doing a good job.
All right. And final question: if you had to pick one, what is your most proudest moment as a baseball coach?
That's tough. There's been a lot of, like I said, those little individual victories. I'm not very good at, celebrating as it's going. I don't, I always try to look at things subjectively after the fact. But realistically, honestly, it's at the end of the season, having those end of the year meetings, talking to the kids, and realistically, when they're coming back and they're saying this is the most fun I've ever had playing baseball, or thank you for making my last year of baseball amazing, or whatever it is, and or those signing days that we have here, and being able to see the parents and knowing that we had a little piece in each kid's commitment, and giving them those opportunities to go on and do something special. So those for me are the proudest moments I have as a coach. The wins are awesome, and hope to bring a championship soon to the Somers. But at the end of the day, the proudest things for me is seeing the kids develop, like I said, on and off the field.
Yeah, that's definitely important and great to see. But I want to thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So now we're introducing our NASCAR Talladega recap.
So in Talladega, it came down to the end, as Talladega always does, but it was a 2 wide with Priest and Cindric up front, a bunch of cars behind there, and they were able to hold off the cars behind them, and Cindric wound up taking that one to win Talladega. Priest also got disqualified along with Joey Logano after that race as well, so even if Priest did win that 2 wide, very close finish, it would have still gone to Cindric. And then now our next race, NASCAR race, we have Kansas coming up. And Brandon, who do you see taking that one?
I see Tyler Reddick taking this one.
So, starting the season off with 3 wins in a row from race 2 to 4 in the season. Bell has been a little bit off, not winning. He's still been up there, but I think this is the race he bounces back and gets his 4th win of the year.
So next on to our NHL playoff recap of round 1. So the Jets are leading 3-2 heading into Game 7. The Oilers are advancing after beating the Kings 4-2. The Stars and Avalanche are going to head to a Game 7 series tied 3-3. And then the Golden Knights are going to advance, beating the Wild 4-2. And then earlier in round 1, Panthers advanced to beat the Lightning 4-1. Capitals advanced, beating the Canadiens. And the Hurricanes advanced, beating the Devils 4-1.
Yeah, so now we're on to our NBA playoff recap so far as of now. So right now the Celtics just went over the Magic, and the Cavs sweep the Heat. The Lakers are unfortunately eliminated in the playoffs, and the Knicks advance over the Pistons.
The Thunder dominated the Grizzlies. Each game was just domination, and Thunder swept them as well. Pacers win over the Bucks in 5 games, but the Bucks in Game 5 were up by 7 and blew a 7-point lead in overtime towards the end of overtime as well. So a disappointing end of the season for the Bucks. And also we have the Nuggets and Clippers. That series is currently tied at 3, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in Game 7. Warriors also lead the Rockets in that series. Their series 3-2. Alright, so now I'm going to share my NBA playoff predictions based on where we're at today. So I think in Game 7 of Clippers Nuggets, I think Nuggets take that one. I think the Warriors take the other series. So now we're on to round 2, just the rest of the playoffs. So I think Pacers Cavs, it's going to be an easy win in that series for the Cavs. Then I have the Celtics and the Knicks, easy win for the Celtics. And then we got in the West, we got the Thunder and the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets just have too much going on right now. The Thunder are walking and rolling. I think they're going to continue and win that series against the Nuggets. On to the Timberwolves and Warriors. I think Timberwolves are going to continue. I think they're going to find a way to stop this Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry Warrior squad. And I think it's going to be Timberwolves Thunder Western Conference Final. Fortunately, I think that is where the Timberwolves road ends, as the Thunder go to the finals. And I think in the East, I got the Celtics over the Cavs. But I think the Cavs could stretch it out to 7 games, and I got the Celtics winning the finals in 5 over the Thunder. So next up is our MLB series predictions. So instead of doing MLB games, we're going to predict upcoming series and what the wins and losses will look like in those series and what we think. So Brandon, do you want to start off first?
Yeah, so I picked out the Yankees versus Padres. They're going to play May 5th, May 6th, and May 7th, 3-game series. I have the Yankees winning 2 out of 3 games. They're going to go into Game 3 of the series with 1 win each, and the Yankees are going to win in extra innings of Game 3 to get the win on their series there.
And I picked out the Mets and the Cubs, 2 great teams in MLB so far this season, May 9th to May 11th, and I think the Mets are going to win 2 out of the 3 games in that series.
And next we have a recap of the NFL draft and some highlights from it.
So let's just take a look at the NFL draft and what happened there. And first off, just obvious pick there. The Titans took Cam Ward first overall, followed by Jaguars trading up to get Hunter and Carter going to the Giants. But a few other big moves, like Giants trading back into the first round to take Jackson Dart, which I think honestly is a great move. Someone that a lot of people, including myself, think is similar to Josh Allen, and I think there's a chance that could work out very well. And then looking more into the draft, Shedeur Sanders, what a fall he had, as he wound up, no one was interested in taking him. Eventually the Browns decided to take him in the 5th round, but yeah, that was something not expected either. And Philip, do you want to talk a little bit more about some draft grades?
Yeah, so draft, I think everybody knew it would be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter going 1, 2, 3. I don't think anybody really expected or predicted the Jags to trade up. The Jags, if you don't know, traded up from the 5th spot all the way to the 2 spot, swapping with the Browns, throwing in some extra picks in there. So now the Browns have 2 first-round picks next year, and could possibly get some more, lose some, whatever. So Cam Ward, I think he's obviously the best quarterback in this draft. Not necessarily the best talent, but Titans needed someone. They needed a quarterback. They needed to get that solved. I mean, they could have gone Aaron Rodgers on free agency, but I think getting a young guy to develop smart. So I think that's a pretty good pick. I think that's probably like a B minus, probably B minus, I'd assume. And then Travis Hunter, I think that it was smart. The Jags needed some corner help, and they could use some wide receiver help as well. So I think trading up just to solidify your true cornerback 1, wide receiver 1 or 2, I think that's smart. I'm giving that an A+. And then Abdul Carter falling to the Giants at 3. Obviously, that was the draft order I think everybody expected, everybody knew. So Abdul Carter falling to third pick. Giants take him, have a great D-line. You got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and you got that whole defense. Kayvon Thibodeau, Tyler Nubin. Now you got Abdul Carter. And now you got all those pieces on the defense. I think this could be a great defense. And it's gonna be needed with all this this tough schedule. They have a really, really tough schedule, surprisingly, for this upcoming season. And then the rest was kind of expected. I mean, Will Campbell falling to the Patriots, Mason Graham falling to the Browns, which the Jags would have taken. And then obviously, I think the greatest pick of this draft right now, Ashton Genty going to the Raiders. Pete Carroll loves running this ball. I think if the Raiders can get some few key stud offensive linemen, I think this will be great. And I think the rest of the draft, I think it was pretty obvious. It was a great draft, and I think Will Johnson falling to the Cardinals in the second round, that could really help the Cardinals. Cardinals have not too bad of a defense, but they could really use some corner help. And Will Johnson falling all the way this far low to them was pretty surprising. So we have the best draft move, trader pick of the NFL draft so far. Benny, why don't you start?
Yeah, so there were some good moves, but there's one move that I think was the best by far. The Jaguars trading up to get Travis Hunter. Just a great move there. Yeah, the Jaguars are a team that have been struggling a lot, and I think Travis Hunter is a team that could help. Like Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback that is kind of compared to Joe Burrow, and I think Travis Hunter is a great spot for that in that wide receiver room, a great player to have out there. In addition, on defense, and I think may wind up being a player that could help the Jaguars a ton. And I'm excited to see what he does on the Jaguars, but I think best player in the draft, Jaguars made the best move. And another cool fact is it's the first time a team has traded up in, I believe, over 20 years to a top 2 pick in the draft for a non-quarterback.
Yeah, I have tight end Tyler Warren going to the Colts. Is big, is nice size, and he's very physical on the line. So I think it's going to help the Colts out there.
Yeah, I have Mike Green actually falling in the second round. I think it was pick 59 or something. I like how he fell all the way down. Obviously, there were some concerns about, him staying healthy. He's not a designated pass rusher, some other stuff outside of football. But I think the Ravens made a great move just taking Mike Green. He's a great player. I think he was one of the most physical of this entire draft. Great athletic ability, great agility, great size, great speed. He had all the good physical attributes you want in a defensive player, and I think he had all those.
Thank you for watching. Leave a comment below with something you want us to talk about in the future or a reaction to something we talked about today. And we are the Somewhere Sports Broadcasting Club. See you next week.
Back out to Kelly. Now Kelly with it.
Yeah, so they're just passing back and forth. Looks like they're trying to run the clock a little bit. Glacius going in. Heavily guarded by 2 defenders.
Back to Kelly, and it goes in! Mason Kelly gets it. Now a 10-1 lead. Oscar is rocking and rolling here. That's Mason Kelly's first of the day as it goes in now. And it's a 9-point lead.